When I first became a manager, I thought the promotion meant something very specific. I thought it meant I was ready to decide and to lead and critically to have answers. In hindsight, that belief caused most of the mistakes I'm going to talk about today. And the reason why I decided to share those is to genuinely help managers to avoid them. Don't think these are limited to new managers only. I know some very senior people who still make some of those simply because either nobody told them better or they have not yet had the hard lesson. My name is Marcel. I'm a chartered manager with over 20 years of experience in all levels of roles, from a supervisory role in a family business to heading departments in an international corporation. These are real mistakes and most definitely not the only ones that I made in my first 6 months. I will explain how they could have been avoided and also the effects that they had. I'm doing this so you can better relate to them in your own situation, which will be unique. Although 80% of us share the same common thread to our careers. We start as accidental managers because in reality, management doesn't start with competence in managing. It starts with exposure after you've been good at your previous role for a long time. All of a sudden you're visible and your decisions matter. Your gaps in management skills are obvious to others, but especially to yourself. And this is where the real exposure happens. And if you're not careful, you spend your first year trying to perform being a manager instead of actually becoming one. And that's exactly what I did. So this isn't a list of tips. This is a post-mortem. We're going to deconstruct my not so very glorious, but perfectly average and commonplace beginnings. 4 things that I got wrong early on and what I would do differently now. Number 1, I thought I had to know everything. The first mistake I made was subtle but destructive. Once I had the title, I assumed I should know. Not eventually, not roughly, but immediately. And that was naive, but only with the perspective of years, and it's a natural result of ambition. I walked into the role believing that authority meant certainty, that if someone asked a question, I should have an answer. If there were ambiguity, I should resolve it. If a decision needed making, I should make it quickly and confidently. I behaved like those top-tier managers we see in movies who make a decision cutting through everything and everyone, and they are invariably correct. Life, however, doesn't work like that. From the outside, it probably looked like confidence, but from the inside, it was pressure, and a lot of it. The mistake I made was that I didn't give myself any time to grow into the role. I tried management like a switch you flip, not a transition you move through. Every question felt like a test. Every pause felt like an exposure. Every "I'm not sure" felt like weakness. I know there's plenty of you watching it thinking, I remember that. So I compensated in all the wrong ways. I filled the silence. I over-decided. And I spoke with certainty even when I didn't have it. I wasn't making things up, but I was confident about my half knowledge. Now, what that created was tension. People felt managed by me rather than with me, and I felt constantly on edge. And I quietly burned a lot of energy trying to live up to that imaginary standard, to this Hollywood image of an executive, which is so very toxic in the real world. Here's the thing I didn't understand back then. New managers don't need absolute knowledge. They need runway. If I could speak to myself at that stage, I wouldn't tell myself to be more confident or decisive. I tell myself to give it 12 months. 12 months to listen more than I speak. 12 months to ask questions without apology. This was my golden opportunity to show gaps in education because everyone knew I was new to the role, the board, senior management, my staff, everyone. 12 months to say, I don't know yet, and really mean it and don't suffer real consequences. What I now know is that competence compounds, but it doesn't arrive on day one. Trying to force it early doesn't speed it up, it just distorts it. Lesson learned: when I start new roles now, and I do it every 4 to 6 years, I take time to show my gaps in knowledge. The second mistake flowed directly from that first. Number 2, I took on everything. Well, I took on everything because I felt the need to prove myself. I said yes to absolutely everything, and I meant it. Every task, project, every problem that landed near my desk. Now, with the benefit of the hindsight, I know that part of it was ambition, part of it was fear, and a lot of it was ego. I wanted to be seen as capable, reliable, and useful. So instead of asking questions like, what's the priority? Or, so what comes off my plate if I take this on? I just absorbed it, and for a while it really felt good. Being needed is intoxicating. Being busy feels like progress until it doesn't. There's a moment every overloaded manager experiences, whether they notice it or not. It's that little time when someone gives you another task and instead of curiosity, you feel anxiety. That's not a weakness, instead it's a signal. It's your system telling you that something is already broken. But I ignored that signal completely. I ended up, obviously, with too much on my plate and no real way of dealing with it properly. Deadlines slipped, quality of work dipped, context switching became just constant. And the worst part, I didn't protect my time or my focus, which meant I couldn't protect anyone else's either. And here's the uncomfortable truth I learned much later. Saying yes to everything is not being helpful. It's being reckless, and instead of boosting your career, it has a potential to slow it or eradicate it completely. Because every yes without context is a silent no somewhere else. And that opportunity cost is something managers on all levels miss constantly. We ignore, thinking we are super organized and can cope with everything. Learning to say no, or at least not now, isn't political, it's professional. Capacity management is management, and a core one at that. This mistake was easy to note as soon as I slipped into my first big burnout. It was staring in face. The next mistake, however, took me years to understand properly. Number 3, I confused busyness with productivity. Yeah, I confused busyness with productivity. And before I say anything else, let me be very clear. I'm not going to tell new managers to take it easy. I don't believe in that. I actually think there's a huge value in front-loading effort early in your management career. There's something great about long hours, deep immersions, learning fast, making mistakes quickly and visibly. It's a really good learning dive and carries a lot of value. No, that part wasn't wrong. What was wrong is how I worked. I was busy all the time, but nothing was finishing. So my inbox was full, my task list was endless, and everything was in progress. The problem was that I aimed for perfection, which meant nothing ever closed. I didn't understand the difference between motion and progress. And as simple as this sounds now, being called out as the busy one was a badge of honor in those first 6 months. And only recently, I really started appreciating how little value there is in such a title. Because being busy feels productive, but finishing things is productive. And there's a massive emotional difference between the two as well. Being busy because work is moving gives you energy. Being busy because nothing is closing, well, that drains it. I lived in the second state for years and I was getting away with it because senior management were happy for me to pick up things that they didn't want to do and then blame me when things didn't get done. And here's the trap. You tell yourself you're working hard, and that, what you feel, is just what responsibility feels like. You tell yourself it will get better once things settle down, but they never do. I had 2 burnouts before this really landed with me. What changed things wasn't working less. It was finishing more because I fundamentally shifted the way I perceived what completed task looked like. I learned that perfection is the worst standard you can have when being operational manager. It's great to have it when you're manufacturing precise technology, but even then, most producers have some sort of allowable failure limits. And I learned, and this changed everything, that closing problems when they were good enough is good enough. Accepting that done beats perfect, creating momentum instead of motion. That shift didn't just improve output, but it brought joy back into the work. The pile of tasks started to melt, and just like in politics and business life, a problem solved is problem forgotten, because there are already 10 others queuing behind the corner. Number 4, I avoided hard conversations. Right, on to the 4th mistake. I would probably call it the most damaging mistake of all, and the one I see new managers repeat constantly: avoiding hard conversations. And there were 2 types of conversations that I avoided. The first one was with people. I didn't know how to deal with emotions, theirs or mine, so I delayed feedback and I softened messages. And at that state, I convinced myself I was being kind and gave others opportunity to change their behavior. But in reality, I was being unclear. One person I managed was genuinely shocked when I finally raised performance issues with her. She thought everything was going well. From her perspective, there were no issues, whereas I sat for months frustrated with her output. The problem was that I hadn't said anything to her, and in the absence of feedback, well, she continued doing what she thought was a very good standard. Even more annoyingly, it only took that one conversation for us to align for the future. Now, avoidance doesn't protect people, it just confuses them. Silence in this instance isn't kindness, it's ambiguity. So have that difficult conversation with another person. There's a whole video to be done how it's done best, but the advice here is to focus around the problem, not the person. What I mean by that is, instead of saying, I notice you don't follow up orders with a phone call to customers. Well, I recommend trying coaching approach, focus on the activity. What are your thoughts about improving our customer service even more by calling customers after they placed orders? Now, the second type of conversation I avoided was about problems. Things like product issues, process failures, things going out of specification. I was terrified of escalation because in my head, raising problems meant blame, and blame meant failure. And failure meant being exposed. In that twisted logic, I was responsible for problems purely by being a messenger of bad news. The thinking at that time was that I was here to solve problems in the first place. So instead of surfacing issues early, I said things like, I'll look into it. And by the time someone more senior got involved, the problem would always grow. And yes, my professionalism would be questioned, which I think was a fair thing to do at that stage. Here's the reframe I didn't have back then. Managers are exposed to problems constantly, and that's not a sign you're failing. That's the job. We literally have jobs because problems exist. If there were no issues, we probably could do with some spreadsheets and automation. I'll share with you a mindset shift that I've had ever since, so you don't have to learn it in the same painful way. If you didn't cause the issue but can fix it, that's a win. If you caused it and raised it early, that's integrity. Either way, you are allowed to escalate if things cannot be fixed just by you alone. And that's fine. Unfortunately, at that time, I didn't have the confidence for the first, and I hadn't yet built the second, so I avoided. And avoidance always compounds. Now, I spent many years working with traders, and there's a saying which I ever since adopted, and I think it's applicable to stocks, goods, and people alike. Your first loss is your best loss. If you recognize the situation as bad and face it head on straight away, you will be better off by a significant margin than if you were to drag the problem out. Remember, problems are part of life. If you're a first-time manager watching this and recognizing yourself, that's a good sign. None of this means you're bad at your job. It just means that you're early. If you've been a manager for many years and recognize yourself in it still, that's even better. That means you have an open mind. Over 80% of us start careers without any training. And simple concepts like the four I just talked about are not simple at all because we have to work them out ourselves. Management, in my view, isn't about getting it right quickly. It's about shortening the gap between mistake and insight continuously through the entire career. Now, I recently spoke to a CEO who was bitter about the mistake he made when managing resources. The issue was lack of checks and balances, and as an after deconstruction sounded simple, but he made it despite being a CEO for more than 10 years. It just goes to show that we never reach the perfection level as managers, ever. The sooner you stop performing the role and start learning it and living it, I think the faster everything else gets easier. Well, not perfect, just clearer. And that makes all the difference. I'll see you in the next one.